G'day, it's Ace here, and thanks for joining me. If you can believe it, it's taken me a few goes to record this video. I just haven't been feeling it. This video loosely is about the Minolta 7000, which is the first autofocus SLR that was ever built by human hands. And it's a beautiful camera. Very, very capable film camera and very easy to use. I've taken it out over 2 occasions using Foma 400 film, which I really messed up developing. And I'm not really here to talk about the Minolta 7000 because it's a beautiful camera and I've done reviews on it before, or I've done photo walks on it before. But what I am going to do, and I haven't really done this before, is I'm going to turn this video off and I'm going to flip to POV. And I'm going to narrate the POV, but I'm not going to narrate it in terms of what I've been seeing, but I'm going to narrate it in terms of what I've been feeling. And that's going to change the dynamic a lot because you're not going to see what's happening up here. You're going to see what's been happening in here when I've been taking these photos. Now, as a heads up, this video isn't going to be super friendly, but I want to give you a snapshot on when the creative juices aren't flowing. And I've had a really hard time lately. Things just haven't been, everything's been going super well. And I'm still feeling this darkness. And things aren't clicking between here and here, and certainly not coming through here. And it's a really hard place to be in as a creative, because everything else, normally if I'm in a bad mood or sad or a little bit black doggy or something like that, I can take a camera out and normally jolly myself along. And these last few times that hasn't been happening. Now, I want you to take heart. There is positive resolution. This isn't all about the black dog or anything like that. But I want to be honest. I've always been honest with this channel, mostly, about what I've been thinking and feeling in the creative process. The takeaway messages before you watch any further is gear matters. You need gear that helps inspire what you see and what you feel and help create that vision. The second takeaway is what's in here and what's in here absolutely impacts what comes through here. If these things aren't right, I'm not necessarily even saying positive, but if they're not in congruence, there can be, I find for me, my photos are just all skew if. And the third thing, and not the most important thing, but the third thing is, for me, when I'm feeling this way, is to keep on forging ahead and to keep on pushing in, because I know in here and up here, it runs in cycles, and sometimes I'm high as a kite, sometimes I'm low. And I know those things don't last forever, and I know sometimes it's circumstantial, and I know sometimes it's internal, and sometimes it's both, and sometimes, like at the moment, it's both. There's circumstances and there's internal things happening that are just crashing over me. But I still forge ahead. Still want to take photos. There's something in me that craves to get out and make a connection with what I'm seeing around me. So the Minolta 7000, I mean, you'll see the photos. They're absolute horse do. I'll go through the video with you. Press in. It's maybe not the most pleasant YouTube video, but I think it's something that's going to resonate with a lot of you, because they're things that aren't often articulated with photo blogs or photo vlogs, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll circle back fairly soon and we'll wrap it up a bit more positively.
"Take me to the beach," she whispered, with her ever-sweet smile. Her soft lips gave my unshaven cheek a quick peck before she raced down the hallway to the kitchen, just as the kettle whistled with steam. I heard the tink and clink of teaspoons in ceramic mugs as she made our morning coffees. I rose to the smell, excited at the prospect of a morning with her at one of our favourite places. The soft yellow glow in the curtains cast a warm hue through our homely apartment, a hug from the heavens, one might say. These warm mornings were just perfect to explore the sands and the seas, We quickly sipped our coffees, brushed our teeth, grabbed our cameras and hit the road. It's been too long since we were last here, she held my hand as we strolled over the soft sand. The outgoing tide had left a wonderful collection of delights from the sea. The slowly rising sun bathed the coastline in gold. Look at me, she directed my chin towards her face with a camera trained to her eye. There, her lips smiled as her index finger pressed the shutter. My camera trained lazily on points of interest, things I've photographed 1,000 times before, and hoped I would capture 1,000 times more, each time being both exactly the same and infinitely different. Picking the right moment, she snuck up and squashed her cheek next to mine, angling to see what I could see through my viewfinder. Rookie composition, she giggled, which, to be honest, was the truth. You can do better. She removed her cheek, leaving a few specks of sand on mine. I love these still mornings. I stood, breathing it all in. It's due to get rougher this afternoon, though. I found myself giddy with excitement. I loved the calm mornings. I loved the cloudy ones. I loved it when the beach was empty and when it was bustling with bodies. I loved the trample of tourists on the strip. I loved the lazy way locals meandered midweek and off-season. I loved almost everything to do with this trashy, beautiful, schizophrenic coastline. Most of all, I loved loving it with her. We sat on a white painted bench in the mid-morning sun, sharing an extra-large coffee from a takeaway cup. Despite the warm weather, steam still wisped from the now open lid, filling our immediate atmosphere with the delicious scents of our shared beverage. Rust from the weathered nails seeped red lines across the white bench. Seagulls cried "looka looka," hoping for a scrap or two from our deliciously flaky breakfast croissants, gathering enthusiastically around crumbs from our brushed-off hands. Why don't we treat ourselves to another? I peered into the empty, white bag that once held the baked delight, already knowing her answer. Our stroll to the bakery was filled with the excitement that the thought of another croissant could bring. Every step a childlike spring. Warm bag in hand, we savoured our second treat with another walk along the wet, soft sand of the shoreline. She angled the bag and tapped the flaky crumbs to a corner, shaking them carefully in her hand. As ladylike as she usually was, this was undoubtedly one of the exceptions that proved the rule. That girl loved her croissants. Come to think of it, there wasn't too much my girl didn't love, as if life itself was a treat worth savouring, like delicious crumbs of a croissant. We walked the long way to the tourist strip, swapping our trek between the wet and dry sand. The stretch of beach was so close to everything, yet only enjoyed by a smattering of locals. Leathered old men threw sticks to the seas, only to be retrieved by the ever-faithful dogs. Fit young things jogged beautifully in the latest fitness gear, their skins shimmering with sweat and sea mist. The occasional smattering of families enjoying the semi-solitude strip of seaside. Our conversation ebbed and flowed like the waves, the cadence of our chatter rhythmic, predictable, perfect. You can see the weather turning rough. Look out there. I pointed at the whitecaps and felt a squall of wind starting to whisper on shore. I adored the way she let the breeze ruffle through her hair. The scrunchie around her wrist could have solved a problem that didn't need fixing. Sometimes, though, we love sitting in the tension of the imperfect. We stopped in the heath before the boardwalk and rolled cigarettes. For no reason in particular, she simply curled her arms around my torso, nestling in while I rolled, licked and set our cigarettes. I slid my hand into her pocket, pinching the lighter between my index and middle finger, sliding it out of the tight denim enclosure. The battered Zippo, the last tangible memory she had of her grandpa, came with her everywhere she went. The engraving, a message of love from his beloved that carried him through the theatres of war, through times of peace, hardship and plenty. I love seeing these clouds wrestle their way to the shore, I observed after exhaling a particularly large drag of our shared cigarettes. The peaceful skies were no match for the slow clambering of grey clouds. Warm, humid winds from the east brought the songs of the seas to our ears. It's like, she paused, it's like those waves of light and sound travelled across oceans just to embrace us in this moment, in this speck of eternity. She gestured for me to put the cigarette between her lips. We untangled ourselves and continued the stroll. Slow, deliberate, peaceful, despite the approaching storm. We reluctantly agreed that we should get the cameras out of the elements, and perhaps it was time to tack back north, up the beach to our car. Tourists and locals alike moved quickly, shielding their faces from the bites of sand being whipped from the beach. Darling, don't think about it. She instinctively felt a small shift in my energy. She skipped 2 steps ahead of me, taking my hand and walked backwards down the beach so she could face me. You need to stop this right now, just enjoy the moment. Her green eyes pierced mine. The wind was well and truly playing havoc with her hair. I gripped my hat to save it being swept down the beach. I was perhaps 90% successful in pushing down the rising feelings, the knowing of what was to come. Small droplets of rain melted on our salty faces as we walked in the tension of the situation. She angled back to my side and pressed her head into my shoulder as I pulled her hip closer to mine. We'd better move quicker so you don't get wet. I don't want you to have to change before you get on the plane. My mind turned to the practical realities of our long-distance relationship, even if it was only for a short time. These trips to the airport were always the hardest, always the quietest, always the saddest. The ache in my bones, the pain in my blood as I hold her one more time. The rain painted over the tears in her eyes, mascara smudging down her wet porcelain face as we kissed in the rain. Airport traffic marshals in high visibility raincoats whistled and tried to move this now soaked pair of lovers along. How I longed for the time when we would be saying goodnight instead of saying goodbye.
Well, there you have it. You've got a snapshot in the mind and the soul and the spirit, so to speak, of Ace. What's going through my mind and what's going through my head when I'm out with a camera, especially when this and this aren't incongruents. And I want you to take heart that if you're going through that, you're certainly not alone. You're not the first creative to think or feel that your personal life is absolutely falling apart and your creative juice just is not flowing whatsoever, and you hate your gear and you hate everything you're shooting and nothing's working, and you just want to just get rid of this whole trade. That you do pull through it. And sometimes for me, in fact more often than not, more often than not I just have to push through. Even if it may be counterproductive in the short term, just getting out. I just feel it. I feel it all, and eventually I come through it and I pull through it, and I know you will too. So crew, it doesn't matter what you're thinking or what you're feeling. Remember, every day can be an adventure when you've got a camera in your hand.